So the first technique we're looking at is the jab. So I've got my 45-degree stance facing my opponent, slightly out of striking range. I'm on my toes, weight off the heels onto the balls of the feet, shifting forwards and back. As I shift in, I'm moving my front foot forwards and through the target as I strike out. I've got my weight transferred onto the front foot in this case, chin tucked in behind the shoulder of the arm that's striking. As I punch, I want to keep my elbow inside, nice tight line. I don't want to be throwing wide this way. This is going to telegraph my shot. I'm looking to keep tight, and instead of getting into the habit of throwing the arms and the shoulders into the movement, remember it's the hips and the core that are doing the driving here, and the weight shifting in the legs, shifting the weight onto the front foot at the point of impact. As I do so, I use my breathing and I tense the core and off. I push through, keeping the chin in behind the shoulder that I'm striking with, and as I push back out, my arm travels back on the same line. I need this to happen. If I start to throw a sloppy jab and I either sort of loop around this way with my guard, yeah, or I drive through and fall through, I'm leaving my chin exposed. If my partner throws though, and I bring the hand back along the same line, it's there, ready to cover. The next technique we're going to look at is the cross. We're going to look at it in isolation, and then we're going to look at it as it is usually applied following the jab. If I'm throwing the cross as a single shot, again I need to utilise this double hip movement. I don't want to be pushing through the target or leaning. I'm going to pull the hip back and drive through. Remember the analogy earlier of throwing the ball. My footwork, again, forwards and through the pad on a 45-degree angle. Obviously if I've thrown my jab, I should already have travelled through. So from here, as I project, my hip moves back, but I try and keep my upper body fairly square. I don't want to be telegraphing this shot by pulling my shoulder back wide, which will also expose my jaw. Again, my left hand comes back to cover the jaw, the chin is tucked in behind the shoulder of the striking arm. As far as the footwork goes, it's really important to get the heel turning outwards. Otherwise, even though I might shift my weight correctly and drive through the pad, there will be a bit of a tendency to bring your chin up. I know that I've been guilty of this when fatigued in fights and the technique starts to disappear a little bit, and I always kick myself afterwards when I'm watching myself back. So rather than this kind of thing lunging in and throwing your weight through the pad, keep nice and tight. Imagine you've got a pole going through the top of your head, down your spine, and I can't lean off that access, I can only turn on it. Again, this is why the traditional karate gyakuzuki reverse punch, it's a really good exercise just to build the correct kind of body mechanics and muscle memory that you're going to use when you're actually striking. I am shifting my weight forwards onto my front foot with this. If I'm throwing it as a power shot, I'm driving forwards and through the target. I may, if I'm range finding, throw it with my weight more central on the back foot, but not too usually. Most of the time this is a big shot and I am committed. So I need to think about my footwork when I'm moving off from the cross, or any committed shot really off the right side. As I'm driving forwards and through, after I make the impact, rather than trying to push back out from here, which is a massive movement, and all my weight's on the front foot, what I'm more likely going to do, if the opponent's still standing there, is to cover up, move inwards and move off. So I'll throw the cross, I'll move in, guard nice and tight, moving right into my opponent. I need to get right into his face because I'm moving into his strong side here, okay? And then I'm going to move off at an angle. I'm going to step out with my lead foot, step into the outside of his strong hand, pull my rear leg around and adjust my feet again so that I don't pull round into a tandem stance this way where I'm on a tightrope again. So, pulling it all together, the double hip movement, the weight shifting, moving in and off after the cross. May throw the cross as an isolated shot if I'm looking at breaking up a fighter's rhythm. Also for any real life street encounters, you would throw your rear hand as a single shot, as a kind of a one-stop shot. When we're talking about striking and applying these techniques to a street situation, really we're talking about a completely different environment, completely different set of body mechanics, which I'll cover at a later date, maybe on a different tape. Quickly, you wouldn't be stood in a guard, for instance. You would be inside of your normal striking range most of the time, more likely at conversation distance. And also, I would generally be having to explode from a dead stop, which is an art in itself. And if you're talking about applying these techniques to the street, you do need to look at training these techniques from inside a comfortable range and from a dead stop with your feet planted, okay, because it's a different set of muscle memory. That's a footnote. In the ring, occasionally you would use it, just throw the straight right hand. Definitely if you were fighting a southpaw fighter, if my opponent stood southpaw, that's the left-handed stance, obviously the right hand and the right leg now are straight inside him. So then, quite often, I'll lead with a rear shot, be it the hand or the kick. More often than not, though, fighting an orthodox fighter, I'm going to precede the cross with the jab. So this then takes away the need for the double hip, because obviously as I fire through the jab, my hip's already cocked back, ready to strike, okay? Also, as I fire through with the jab, I've not just stepped forwards in a straight line, because now I'm going to end up leaning, if I do this, to hit the other pad. Steve, if you would. See, I'm now going to lean across the centre line of my body. That's going to be really ineffective and I'm off balance. So as I throw the jab, I'm moving forwards and through the target on a diagonal angle. One. As I complete my move forwards, I throw the cross, turning the heel out, turning through the ankle, knee, hip, shoulder, and finally, the cross makes impact. When we're performing the techniques, and we're going to throw the jab and the cross now, it's important to have the pads in the right position. I can't have them parallel, that's pretty unrealistic. Also, it's not going to encourage me to turn and to step through and shift my weight forwards and through the target. I need to do that because if I'm firing on a line here, and I don't take my front foot forward and through the target, I'm going to end up leaning across myself. Now I can get away with it here if Steve holds the pads parallel like this and it's drilling a bad technique. He needs to put some distance between the pads. Another common mistake as well is holding the pads way too wide. Try and keep them fairly close to the head, person that's holding the pad. Okay? And staggered slightly. Generally, if you hit someone, you connect with the jab, they are going to move back, they are going to rock back, even if they're really tough. So from here, I'm pushing forwards and through, taking my weight through on a 45-degree angle behind the jab, then driving, pushing from the back foot, turning onto the ball of the foot, turning the heel out, turning through the ankle, knee, hip, shoulder, and drive through to the cross. Left hand comes back to cover nice and tight, chin in behind the arm I'm striking with.